a backcountry standard by Mountain Safety Research, MSR, and it's field serviceable, and people take them to Nepal and Tibet and India and the third world all over. And basically, you can take this tip and stick it into your local ditch, and it's got a pre-filter on the tip, and then inside this, there's a carbon cartridge with a ceramic outside that's field serviceable. So if it plugs up, you can scrub it with a little pot scrubber, and it'll take the outer layer off, and you're back in business again. So I like things that are field serviceable that you can maintain, you know, outside and get them going again. If they break, they're really simple to take apart with no tools, all that. So Katadyn makes a great one. MSR makes a great one. People like the Berkey filters. There's a lot of high-quality filters on there. I like to go with the backcountry standards.
Right, and we actually we carry a ProPure that I have at my house, and just for these, it's lightweight. You could collapse it together. It doesn't take electricity, which is the great thing. That's what I love about it. You just pour water in and you wait for it to come out, and it's good room temperature, and we keep it at my house, and my kids drink out of it all the time. But it's ready to go in case we have to get out. It's, you know, we grab it and we go. And you know, that's one of the things people need to do. I also wanted to add another thing. If you have a fire coming, you want to cut off the gas to your house. That's probably one of the most important things you could do, because if you have fires or earthquakes, you're going to have those things break. And then that's the quickest way for your house to go up. I remember seeing that in San Francisco. You know, why is that house burning? Well, they must have not shut off their gas. And then you see a giant flame shooting up where their gas main was. And that just is, you're asking for it to come out there. Well, let's go, let's move on to keeping cool in this heat. We've got a lot of heat now. Your electricity goes out, say you're in a storm in D.C. You're an old person. How are you going to keep cool when it's hot outside?
Well, we'll go on to that in just a second. I just want to mention, one of the reasons I have the blue tub and the backpack is that there's certain items where I've got like big fat items that I want to bring and skinny. Like this is my first aid kit when it's on my back, and this is my first aid kit when it's in my blue tub. So just think about that. So, you know, that's why you have them both, not just one. Okay, now keeping cool when it's hot. I mean, the obvious thing is evaporative cooling. If you can do fans, if you get yourself wet, those hats that have the gel packs in them are really good, or the things around the neck. But in the old-fashioned washcloth in a water bottle or a tub of water, you just get it wet. Keep your neck and your head wet to keep your brains cool. Extremely important. The ways to recognize when somebody's in trouble with heat, there's two things. They're very serious. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Now, heat exhaustion is not as serious. When you're kind of hot and sweaty and pale and a little clammy in the skin, and you feel terrible, maybe nauseous, a headache, that's not life-threatening, but it's serious. You've got to keep that body cool. Lots of towels, fans, keep that cool. Now, if you pass that point, now typically in heat exhaustion, you might have dilated pupils. Now, when you pass into heat stroke, it's life-threatening. And you've got to you've got to take the body temperature down right away. So this is important. If you see somebody who's gotten like beet red in the face, their skin is dry, you know, they should be sweating, but their skin is dry, that means their body is shutting down and it's not sweating and cooling itself properly anymore. The pupils are tiny. In this, it's life-threatening. You've got to get that temperature down. Ice baths, cold baths, wet, and the fans. Now, if someone's super hot and it's very hot outside, and you can't get them wet, and you put a fan on them, it'll actually make it worse because it'll be driving like 100-plus heat on them and make their body even hotter, and their body's not cooling. You need moisture for a fan to work. So if you're not, you've got to either have body sweat or make it artificially wet with towels and ice cubes to keep yourself cool. Any more questions on those lines? No,
that sounds good. I mean, those are common sense things, but it might not be stuff you're thinking about in the thick of it. You know, the power goes out, you got a tree falling through your house. You know, the next day you wake up, well, now it's 110 degrees. You got to keep cool somehow. And if you don't have a generator with an air conditioner, you're going to be out of luck, essentially.
Now, a small generator will keep your food from rotting, and it'll allow you to, you know, run some small things in your house, like those portable Honda ones. They're great, they're quiet, they'll run all day, but they won't be big enough to power your AC. You got to have two of the small generators that they can synchronize together to do your AC. or like a job site generator. And they're more expensive and they're loud and obnoxious when you go up to the larger generators, but they will keep your AC running, but they'll drive your neighbors crazy with the noise, and they'll drive you crazy with the noise, but better than passing out in the heat.
Yeah, that I remember when Hurricane Rita hit my parents' house really bad, and there was no power. Oh, it had to be for at least 6 or 7 days. I drove down from Austin to go help them out. The Army had gone through and cleared the brush, but they just piled it in everybody's yards. But they did do a good job of clearing out the brush, I will admit that. But we had a giant generator keeping one room cool at night, and that was our one room. And the rest of the time, we were sitting around hosing ourselves down. We did have a little bit of water that we could go get, and they also had a swimming pool in the back, which we were able to use that water from and pull it out. And it wasn't, it had a tree in it, but it wasn't that bad. You could use it for washing clothes or just hosing stuff down, cleaning stuff off. We didn't drink it because we had plenty of bottled water. It wasn't as bad, but I really feel bad for these people in D.C. who are probably not used to living in the lap of luxury without electricity, so it's not good.
Without AC.
Yeah.
Now, other thing you can do to keep some of your food from spoiling, if you have no generator and you have no power, you have no generator to keep your refrigerator going, you can the old style refrigerators in the summer would take burlap bags, and they'd punch like a little tiny hole in a bottle upside down. It's chicken feeder principle, so it would kind of dribble onto the bag and let water into it slowly to keep it moist, and that will keep your stuff 10, 20, 30 degrees cooler, depending on how dry the air is and how hot it is outside than the ambient. So it won't keep it cold like a refrigerator, but it'll help it to spoil less quickly. Does that make sense? And it's better than nothing, but it certainly, your food will still rot without a refrigerator after a little while, and that's where having stored food that doesn't require refrigeration is so important, to have that on hand. Yeah,
and at INFOWARS we actually have a 72-hour grab-and-go bag, which does have the things you need to cook it. To obviously you're going to need to add water, but in a bag that you could grab. You never know when that emergency is going to strike, and that's the thing. It's better to be prepared and not need it than need it and not have it.
Sure, it's like car insurance. Nobody goes down the road saying, I want to get in a head-on collision today because I got insurance. It's like, no, you hope you never need to use the insurance, and nobody's upset when they don't get to use that insurance. And it's the same way with your prep stuff is, don't be upset. Be happy if you don't ever have to use it. But I think in our modern world, chances are pretty much everybody who preps is going to have to use it one of these days, and everybody who doesn't prep is going to be really sorry one of these days.
That's true. One thing I like to add to your car insurance analogy, you can't eat your car insurance.
No, that's true. If you lose your job, you can't eat your car insurance, but you can eat your emergency prep food. That is totally correct.
There you go. So going back to, have you been keeping up to date with what's going on in Fukushima?
I have been watching it. I haven't watched it much recently, but I do know that there's roughly 50 Chernobyls worth of fuel in the spent fuel ponds. Mm-hmm. And it's about a 3-year engineering project to develop the robots to begin to dismantle the spent fuel ponds, because they don't have robots that can handle that level of radiation to go in there right now. And they're talking 10 years between the development project followed by dismantling the ponds, to dismantle those ponds. So you're looking at 5 to 10 Chernobyls worth of stuff hanging out on these blown out buildings, that chances that they're going to be around by the time they've managed to dismantle them are slim. So my guess is that you're going to see a really extreme crisis one of these days when at least one of the spent fuel ponds fails, whether it fails due to corrosion and blowing out from the radiation, or whether it fails due to the next decent-sized earthquake that happens in the vicinity. I don't know, but I would doubt that they're going to last the full 10 years before they've developed the project has gone to completion to dismantle them and safely take that debris somewhere else. So it's pretty serious, and slowly we're putting radiation, significant amounts, into the environment now. But when those fuel ponds fail, you're going to see an escalated crisis. And some people say, well, that's the time to move to the southern hemisphere. But I honestly think that they'll have no choice but to do like what they did with the Chernobyl 200, where they sacrifice a bunch of lives and people give their lives for Japan, and they encase them in concrete and dirt and steel. But, you'll never know until it happens how that plays out.
Well, and they obviously weren't prepared for that situation. They were storing the spent fuel rods on top of the reactor, which was, I can't even imagine why they were doing that.
We do that too.
We do that too, exactly. Yeah. And we do that too because we never came up with a plan to dispose of it properly. And we let these fake funded leftists, say, we don't want the fuel rods over here, we don't want them in this mountain. Well, they got to go somewhere, period. Or you stop doing nuclear power. And I don't ever see him clamoring about that. I always see him talking about coal power, never about nuclear power.
People clamor about getting rid of nuclear power. It's just that it's been, everything was really great until Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, and then it was like, okay, now we fixed it, and then nothing else happened. And then Fukushima happened. So I think people's faith that those engineers are going to figure out a permanent long-term solution are pretty slim. And in Finland, they have it's like From Here to Eternity or something is the name of the movie, but they have an amazing clip of a 3-generation-long building project. In other words, the guy working on it today, his parents' generation started the project, and his kids' generation will finish the project, and it's to provide a permanent repository that will last 100,000 years, because that's how long this stuff is deadly for.
Yeah.
And so, imagine building a structure to last 100,000 years. The pyramids, the Great Pyramid is like, what, 4,000 years old, 4,500 years old? And this is a 100,000-year project to store this stuff. So I think that anyone who says it's a long-term solution is like got their head up where. And there are other solutions. There's real cold fusion coming online. Mm-hmm. There's real demonstrations. There's a variety of alternatives as well as renewables. So if we would just put the kind of money into developing those that we put into developing the current fossil fuels and nuclear, then we could get off of this crazy path and stop killing the planet and stop poisoning the world for generations to come. Only a leftist, whatever. And
another word on that, I think when they came out with nuclear power, they were looking at 2 different types. There was a Thorazine-based, I believe that's the type, and then there's the type we use, which creates lots of DU that they get to put into the weapons. So I think military brass prevailed on that, and we got our endless supply of DU to pollute the rest of the world, in addition to create a nuclear power solution that isn't viable and is disgusting and leaves us with a lot of crap that we don't know what to do with. Essentially, we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, there is thorium, and apparently...
Thorium, that's what it was.
Yeah, the first reactor at Indian Point, north of New York City, was started out as thorium. Mm-hmm. And it had its own sets of problems. Now, it didn't have the problem of, it is a more plentiful source of fuel by a long shot, and not nearly as deadly, and it doesn't produce any weapons-grade material. So the no weapons-grade material is one reason why it was axed. But apparently it's got a significant set of problems also, and it's not all perfect like the thorium advocates tell you.
Right.
But the cold fusion stuff, or maybe it's transmutation, maybe it's cold fusion, something is going on there. There's a number of demo units out now that are showing on a small scale, and there's some large people who are trying to build up, Andrea Rossi in Italy and Decathlon in Greece. So there's a lot of projects, and I think it's just a matter of a few years before somebody's got a very scalable